Hey everybody, I'm Sue, and in today's video we're going to do another winter scene. Yes, I'm doing a lot of winter scenes because I guess I'm inspired, right? It's cold. It was cold today. We haven't had snow in East Tennessee, but it's coming. I know it is. And one of my Patreon people, Paul, had sent me a picture of something that he did, and I thought, you know what? This is a good opportunity to do a night sky with snow. So I'm going to show you the painting that I did. It's a little quick demo. I'm going to show you. And I wanted to go ahead and include some light. So I have this little log cabin and a deer in the trees. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how to do the sky and the snow, and not everything has to be white or black. So really, you know, I think I threw this by one of my students today, is keep your friends close and your values closer when it comes to painting nighttime skies. So here we go. Everything's very close in value. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this video of painting a nighttime sky and snow. So again, if you are my subscribers, thank you so much. And if you're not, consider subscribing. And know that this particular painting will also be on Patreon. So let's go ahead and jump into this little painting. Okay, here is our color palette today. We've got ivory black. Forgive me, it's a big, fat, wide mess because it was really runny today. This is a Winsor Newton ivory black. I have a, this is a Michael Harding's Prussian blue, Winsor Newton dioxazine purple, Winsor Newton ultramarine blue. I have, this is Richardson's King's blue. This is Michael Harding's magenta, titanium white. This is cadmium yellow. And these are all these, well, almost all these are Michael Harding's. That's the burnt sienna. That is, that's China vermilion. That is red umber. That is cad red. This is Indian brown ochre. And we have, what was this guy? Oh, goodness, this is another one. Oh, that's, actually, that's a Winsor Newton's light red. And you can see I have my colors kind of divided out. These are kind of going to be my snow colors. Here's the light from the window, and these are all the, I wanted the heat. I wanted to add a little bit of heat to this snowy winter landscape with the cabin. So the interior light coming from inside the cabin is going to cast down on the snow. I just like to add a little bit of warmth to the piece. So, and believe it or not, I'll be able to use all these same colors for the deer as well. So here, let's jump in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and mix a nighttime sky, and nighttime sky does not have to be black. So I'm obviously using a little bit of ultramarine blue and dioxazine purple, little King's blue, and I'm using a number 5 rosemary clips filbert, and I'm just kind of blocking in the sky. And basically this is my mid-tone, and I will be making it a little darker on the top of the of the substrate and a little lighter at the horizon line. As you can see, I'm kind of lightening it up a little bit at the horizon line, and I'm mixing it. Here I'm putting a little ultramarine blue and the Prussian blue at the top, and I'm darkening a little bit more, and then I'll go ahead and just soften it up just a little bit. And I'm using my soft natural hair brush. It's the 279 series of the rosemary flat brushes, and I'm just kind of softening it up, and I wanted to make that transition a little bit softer. And so once I kind of have the sky in, keep in mind that we're going to keep our values very close to each other. And so when I'm actually scratching out where I need the trees, and I'm using my paint scraper. So this is not actually painting on the trees, I'm scratching paint off of the background and suggesting where my trees are going to go. And then I'll just go ahead and put in the dark values. So what I'm mixing here, again, is the Prussian blue and ivory black combination and putting in the paint where I want the tree branches to grow. And I'm letting them soften up around into the background, so I'm keeping my edges soft. And then I'm leaving a lot of blanks, if you will, or negative space, so I can actually put in some snow. So as I put in the actual snow, I'm keeping my value very close to the background or the sky color. And I don't want my values to be far apart. Obviously the trees are dark, but the snow and everything, it's very, very soft. It's a low light situation, so I don't need a whole lot of contrast here. More trees, and this, of course, this tree is in the foreground. And again, I'm using the Prussian blue, ivory black, ultramarine combination to do the tree, but I'm going a little bit more intense because it is closer to us. Now, I'm wanting the light to shine through this window as if that's where the warmth is coming into this painting. So I'm trying to keep my colors as pure as I can, and I'm using cad yellow and a little bit of the red umber and the burnt sienna, and putting in the little light in the windows. And I do have a little bit of my genuine China vermilion, and so since I have it, I'm using it. And I'm putting in just the warmth. This is the one place where there is a lot of warmth in this painting. So the light pouring out of the window will carry over to the sides of the cabin, and that's why I'm making this completely warm at first. And then I will actually, you'll see, I'll cool it down a little bit on the sides. And there's a lot of interesting pinks and all kinds of fun colors that are pouring out of that window. It's all that light is warming up that area. So I'm kind of blocking in where the actual cabin and the window space and all that light that is coming from that window. It's all pouring out. here's the yellows and the warm colors pouring out of the window, and I wanted to make a trail of light just coming out of the window, and it's right there on the snow, so I'm carrying it over. Now, I'm working from several different references, and the deer is something I'm kind of making up a little bit. I have a deer reference, but the coloring has to, everything has to kind of jive with the original suggestion of a cold winter night. So I'm having to, I'm winging it really on the whole deer. But here we are. I'm putting in the nice bright colors of the snow, and this is Michael Harding's magenta. And then I'm going ahead and I'm going right above it, and I have a little bit of a darker color, and you can see the colors as I mix. I'm using quite a bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of indigo, I'm sorry, not indigo, but Prussian blue, and a little bit darker as I just get further and further away from the light source. It does get a little bit darker. And I've got to continue the tree that's behind me here and bring it on down, and you can see what's happening here. You can see what's happening. So I'm loving this color that I'm using for the background trees. Remember, it's not a whole lot of black. It's mainly the Prussian blue, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of ivory black that's creating that look. And the snow, again, is very close in value to the actual background color of the sky. There's quite a bit of pink in the snow here, and especially where the light from the window is catching on a little bit of the snow on the roof. I'm using the Michael Harding's magenta and white mixture, and here you can see I'm using the King's blue, ultramarine blue, and dioxazine purple for the rest of the snow. And whenever I need to have a darker shadow, you'll see I'll start dipping into that Prussian blue to create that darker value. But again, the values are all pretty darn close. If you look at the value of the background sky and the trees and the snow on the roof, it's not that far apart. Remember, keep your friends close and your values even closer when doing a nighttime sky and snow. intensely dark this snow is. I mean, would you ever consider snow in the night to be this intense and dark? Well, it's not that different from the sky color. And yeah, snow can look this way. So I'm putting in a little bit of the magenta up close to the actual light pouring out of that window. And I'm bringing it right up to that line. Obviously, I've not really gotten into the deer yet, and I'm still have that big blank area right above the deer where there is no paint. And I've got to do this little tree, and it was giving me a fit. Like, I was leaving it to the very end because I wasn't really sure how I was going to handle that area right above the deer, that big white spot. But you'll see, we'll get there. And when I have this wet surface, it makes it easier for me to just go ahead and sign my paintings, because I can use my paint scraper and just scratch out my signature. Super, super easy. But I also see that I have to create this darker value down here because the snow does have to be lighter than my my cabin. So I'm darkening the value here, which instantly lightens up my snow and makes it a lot more believable. So I'm just trying to get all this part in. Time to block in this deer. Now, of course, you know, it's a very loose sketch and I've got to make some adjustments. But the deer itself, whitetail deer in the winter, tend to have a more gray cast, where in the summer they tend to be more of a burnt sienna. So now that I'm also dealing with a low light issue, the deer's going to be a lot darker. And this is where I'm having to make adjustments because I tend to, I find a neat reference, but I have to adjust for the lighting. So I'm kind of winging it here too. And I'm putting in a lot of the dark values in the deer and just kind of laying it in. So the color that I'm using here to lay in the deer is the ivory black and the red umber by Michael Harding. It's a combination of those two colors. So trust me, it's not completely black, but it is really dark. And I'm getting in my deer and deciding where everything's going, and I'm just kind of, and here I'm using a very small, it's a number 0 rosemary eclipse filbert. And so I'm graying up the areas where I can gray it up, and I'm just using basically the same color with a little bit of white added to it, and creating just, getting my deer's volume and shape in here. moving along through the piece, I realized the neck is a little too short on this deer, so guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cut that deer's head right off with a paint scraper, and I'm gonna lengthen the neck and add a little bit more height and create that a more proper head for this deer. So I'm kind of going to blocking in a little bit of paint in the background, and here I go, lengthening the neck a little bit, creating the actual shape that's a little more bit more appropriate for this deer, and I will feel much better. I will definitely be able to sleep tonight once I get this head in. But I am, yeah, see, this is how I work through a piece. I mean, there's often times I don't always make it correct on the first sketch, and there's a lot of adjustments that have to be made. So I'm filling in some of the background behind the deer, and yes, I do have a headless deer right now, but don't worry, she'll have a head before too long. Already feeling much better about the actual deer's head. She's looking a lot more fine. So I'm taking a little bit of the cad yellow and white mixture and highlighting the edges of her, because I want the light from the window to kind of shine through. So I'm using a little bit of a paint scraper and scraping out some of the blue so I don't muddy up my cad yellow white mixture. And I'm laying it in. I'm just giving her a little light so that it's kind of coming in behind, you know, in front of her. I want to say I'm backlighting her. I'm front lighting her, if you will, because where the direction of the light is coming from. And yeah, it's making this feel more real to me. It's a lot more concrete by creating the same light around the deer as the rest of the painting. Now I'm adding a lot of this magenta white tint in behind the deer, and you're probably wondering, why is she doing this? Well, in one of the photo references that I'm working from, there's a very beautiful tree that is covered in ice and snow, and it seems to just glow with this pink color. So I figured if I just go ahead and add it into the background, it'll make sense. And you'll see here, I'll start scraping out eventually where the tree is going to go. But I have a lot of this pink that is kind of bouncing around this whole painting. It's the little bit of light that's still shining on in this nighttime snow. And forgive me, my Singer decided it was a good time to chew a bone, and that's what you're hearing in the background, is him gnawing away on a bone. So, okay. So I'm taking the paint scraper and scratching out where this ice-covered little tree is going to go. And what the scratcher, why scraping the paint off versus just painting it directly on allows me not to muddy up my painting. So I'm taking off the paint that I don't need. And here I am going in with a very small brush. And this is actually a liner brush, or a also known as a rigger. It's an ivory rigger, and I am painting in the little ice-covered branches of this little tree. And it's what I kind of avoided throughout this whole painting because I wasn't sure how I was going to handle it. But it works out great. I am very satisfied with how this is turning out. So I'm just taking this rigger, and I'm alternating between pink and white and a light blue as I'm laying in these branches of this tree. And as I put these little branches in, I'm also filling in behind them where the other trees may be going. So as you know, there's these pine trees behind there, and some of these pine trees are going to have that original mixture of paint that I made with the ivory black and the Prussian blue. But I'm also using a darker version of the magenta. So I'm taking magenta and ivory black and putting that in behind too, because as the magenta color is because of the light cascading from the actual cabin onto the snow, and it's actually being picked up by some of the light in the trees. So yeah, I love to play with light. We're dancing around a little bit and making a fun time. So meanwhile, I'm also painting on the tree that's in the most immediate foreground and putting in some of the detail, trying to just fill everything in. And of course I drew the snow in first, and I will have to do some of the highlights that's going to be on the snow, but I keep bouncing around on this whole piece and putting in darker values where I can, and just kind of looking where everything needs to go. Putting in the lighter values of this little ice covered tree branches. It looks like lace to me, and it's just so delicate and fine, and it's so much fun to paint. To highlight some of the snow, and there's a lot of snow on the boughs of this tree. So I put in with a base coat of like a light purple, and now I'm adding in basically the king's blue. And because I'm directly painting and doing this alla prima, it's blending nicely for me. So I'm adding some more snow onto the tree boughs and creating the weight of that snow that's making these trees bend down. And yeah, it's actually coming together. I'm really enjoying this piece. This is super fun. just kind of wrapping it up. I'm getting close to the end, and there's not really a lot of detail in this piece at all, because with a low light situation, it's really hard to see a lot of detail. But you can see the light, and that's the fun part. So I'm kind of wrapping it up on this, and knowing that you got to kind of get the structure correct on the deer, because you cannot rely on detail. You've got to get it in there correctly and just kind of create the form, and that's basically what I'm doing here. This folks is a piece that's been done alla prima, and it has taken me probably about 3 hours to do. But keep in mind, I have to stop and walk the dog, I have to have lunch, I'm dealing with people coming into my studio, so maybe it's not quite a 3-hour piece, but it was a fun piece all in all. And you can see I'm just going over where the light is going to happen on the deer, so I'm going in with the cadmium yellow white mixture, putting in the light around the face, but I feel confident that this is a good representation of a white-tailed doe, and as if she's just kind of checking in to see where that warm light is coming from. You know, I like that, and this was been a fun piece. If you guys have any questions about anything I've covered in today's video, please don't hesitate to ask. Leave it in the comment section. I'll be glad to get to you. This was, this was a fun piece. I've been inspired to do a lot of winter scenes lately, I know, and and this will be airing right before Christmas time, so I do want to remind everybody to have a happy holiday. Be blessed, know you're blessed, and enjoy this holiday season. And again, thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, do comment and let me know what you want to hear. And there it is. So again, I'm gonna let you look a little closer, and you can see I was using a lot of just lots of blues and purples and pinks. I wanted to make the light, and I'm sorry about the reflection here, I'll hold it back here, the reflection coming, or the heat coming from the window and casting onto the snow. I just kind of like that. I thought it looked homey and warm, and it's nice to be able to make snow look a little warm. Yeah, this was a fun little piece, and it took me a couple hours to do. This again is on a 8x8 gessoed panel, so it was kind of a smooth surface, and you saw that I did use the little cutting tool, the little paint eraser, if you will, to be able to sculpt out some of the areas in the piece. Now, of course, I had to keep the colors of the doe here very cool, very dark, because she's almost being backlit, and that's why you see the light highlights on her legs and on her face. I did use several different references to do this piece, to come up with this composition, but you do have to keep your light consistent, regardless, whether you have a deer in one picture and a house in another picture, your trees and everything. So you have to kind of keep everything consistent, and knowing where your light source is coming from is important. So again, thank you so much for joining me, and if you are my subscribers, as always, thank you. Be sure to catch this one on Patreon, and until next time, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.